The biggest problem of our society is neither global warming, nor crime, nor terrorism, nor any kind of social or political phenomenon that's happening in our society now. The biggest problem that mankind faces today is overpopulation. And overpopulation is such a mother of all the calamities that we have caused. For instance, let me make you aware that because of overpopulation, poverty exists. It's a very simple logic because there's so many mouths to feed. And when poverty exists, there arises a very big complexity. People tend to become dubious in earning their bread because resources are so scarce. That's why countries that have a big number of population have the worst crimes within their territory. For instance, in Africa here, if you take Nigeria, Nigeria is perhaps the most country with crimes in Africa. They are an infamous race where its citizens are known of scamming and conning. But something that has to be clearly seen is that Nigeria has the biggest population. They are over 200 million. They constitute almost 25% of Africa's population. With such tremendous amount of people in only one country with a very limited input, naturally some of the citizens, which is a very good number of them, will tend to survive through other means. A man who has nothing to lose will have every reason to risk because he has nothing to lose anyways. So he would rather risk it all, which is nothing really, except the life he has, and get everything than living without nothing. And hence why you see a lot of crime happening in these countries. Bangladesh, for instance, it is one of the most populated countries with over 160 million. Their crime has evolved so much that the United Arab Emirates have banned Bangladeshis from getting into the UAE, from getting into their country, simply because of their desperation to survive and do whatever possible means they can attain to survive. So they shut them down. These are not solutions, obviously, but that's what overpopulation is causing. Apart from poverty, you have millions of children in India, in Asia, in Africa dying of hunger. Why? Because of overpopulation. There's no food. Another aspect created by overpopulation, prostitution. Prostitution is a coupling of two things that cause it: marriage and overpopulation, which gives birth to poverty and makes a person forced to enter into prostitution. Why I say marriage? Because if there is no marriage, then no women will be wives, and there will be no need to go for a prostitute. Life will be simply free. Also, the statistics show that 90% of the customers of the prostitutes are married men. So, marriage and overpopulation are the cause. And with overpopulation, obviously, the girl has nothing to do. She has no job opportunity. She may even be a college graduate, but she is forced into prostitution. And despite how shameful it is and how in resentment she lives, millions of our young girls continue to destroy their lives every day. Now, You will be surprised if I tell you that the only culprits who are propagating and continue to endorse overpopulation is the church and the priests and the politicians. And when I say by church and priests and politicians, I mean all religions with their sects. I mean all churches and mosques. I mean all politicians around the world, wherever they are. These two agents are, in fact, the reason why overpopulation is existing and continues to exist. And how is this possible? First of all, the church is against birth control, it's against abortion. And it is such an absurd idealism that it preaches to its religious believers, who are the Christians, that they should never control their birth. Now, the birth control pill or the contraceptives, with all their various kinds, are perhaps the most revolutionary, progressive thing humanity has ever discovered. Because for the first time, the pill or the contraceptives could make the woman and the man equal. For the first time, the woman had the chance to give birth whenever she wants and however she wants. For the first time, she can control how she wants to live, what she wants to do, and manage her life. Before the discovery of the contraceptives, women were just mere victims to birth. Their birthing of children was just a mere accident, and millions of people are born in accidents. So, by actually allowing abortion and birth control, we are giving the woman her freedom for the first time to reclaim her humanity. We are dignifying her. We are giving her dignity to be a full, independent human being rather than just be a shadow to man. But the church is against the contraceptives. The Pope is against all means of birth control. And every Pope comes and reiterates it. But absurd enough, this same Pope and his bishops and priests, they go around the world opening orphanages wherever they go. And what happens in those orphanages? They enroll kids into Christianity. The Muslims do that with their khalwa, which is the equal of orphanage for children. And they radicalize children and destroy children in a belief system that is rootless and baseless. And so on, the superstition is passed to generations, and the product is the society we live in today. So you go as a believer to your priest, to the church, to pray, to feel consoled, to at least be uplifted, be a human being. But no, what they do, they are banks of guilt. They split you into two. They tell you be loving, be sharing, share with the world, share everything. But at the same time, they tell you fill the earth, never use contraceptives. It is against God. So they make you create orphans, poor children who will suffer in life, who have no hand in whatsoever of the irresponsibility that has been committed by his parents. And in such a way, a child's whole life is brought into accident. He's born in accident, he lives in accident, and he dies knowing that he lived his life just as an accident. I want all this nonsense to stop. If there are great criminals in the world, then the Pope is one of the greatest ever that exists right now. Because of him, millions of orphans are being produced and indoctrinated into Christianity. Of course, a little child in an orphanage, he has no choice. They have been doing that in India. The so called Saint Mother Teresa would preach love and peace around India, telling people to be loving, to be peaceful, to share whatever they have. Service is what the church says. In the name of service, they opened orphanages and enforced their faith on those poor Indians. That's what she has been doing in the 80s. And they make her a saint. She is advocating production of poor children, orphans, who she will later take. Of course, the bribe is bread, and Christians have developed very sophisticated bribes. They're not like Muslims. Muslims are still in the Stone Age. They still live with the same consciousness of the stone man. Killing is the only way to subdue and force somebody to believe. Christians were at one point at that same stage during the Crusades, and now they are a bit evolved because of time. Islam will also be a bit more sophisticated. And as religions become more sophisticated, their sophistication simply means their death. So the church is fully responsible for overpopulation. And I, from this position that I speak right now, I want all the powers to be stripped away from these priests and politicians who are standing in the way of birth control and means of birth control. Let abortion be legalized fully and given rights to all women. Let birth control be taught a year before a girl receives her sexual maturity. So, why do I say both the priests and the politicians? The reason why I hold these two agents responsible is because the priest, in exchange for protection, for finances, he blesses the politician and tells the nation that this politician is not only chosen by elections, but he is chosen by God Himself. So he is a manifestation of God's will, and everything he does is what God wants to be done on earth. And with that blessing, of course, enforced through the church and through belief, the politician now starts to have a very comfortable umbrella where he can do his dubious activities and strengthen his dominance over the people. It is very simple. You can see it for yourself. You go to the main churches where heads of state or ministers or presidents are held. You will always see that the front row where these people sit are couches, beautifully dressed, perfumed. Meanwhile, the rest of the society sits in hard iron benches or wood. It is absurd. In a place of God, even segregation occurs. Even the so called president cannot be a normal human being, at least in a church or a mosque. Then what kind of religion is this? And not only that, whoever he is, the prime minister or the president, sometimes, or actually most of the times, is given the privilege to talk. Because it is that conspiracy between them. They keep blessing each other. And that exchange keeps their dominance progressive and it strengthens it more and more. I want people to totally be alert in memory of preserving this earth, in memory of Stephen Hawking and his message by giving us 1,000 years to survive. I want every rational person to not only rebuke the sayings and the propagations of his people and the priests and the politicians. I want that these so called priests and politicians become mere comedians. So, the only way out of this mess is an individual revolution. As I always say, all revolutions have failed. It is a time for an individual revolution. And it is very simple to understand that a revolution as such will never succeed because it will not be tangible. It will be abstract. A revolution is for a society, and a society is not a real thing. Humanity is not a real thing. Humanity is an abstract word. If you go anywhere, you will never meet a humanity. You will meet a human being. You will meet a person, but not humanity. And these so called revolutionaries, they come with their utopias, proclaiming end of class struggle, equality. None of that is going to happen. It has been tried and all has failed. Only a meditative society can avoid self destruction. And at this time of our age, we are light years away from being a meditative society. If a Donald Trump says about the president of North Korea, Kim Jong un, that if he tries to push the button, let him try. I actually have one and mine works. Now, he seems to just throw these words on Twitter as if he's talking about his skiing buddy or his wrestling rival. These are nuclear weapons we're talking about. And with the amount of destruction they have, 1,000 years is too long, as Hawking said. Even 100 years is too long. Because any moment with one single button, not only humanity will disappear, we will wipe out all living creatures with us, most of them. So the time is now to plug out all these idiots who are in power and center the society on beings who are conscious, who have gone beyond the mind, who have transcended the ego. Because politics as such is nothing but a power trip, is nothing but an ego trip. And when I say politics, I include every form of ambition in life, even religious ambition included. A person who wants to become a pope is as ambitious as a person who wants to become a president. And in the process of ambition, violence, aggression, competition is involved. And politicians continue to dominate and they use every possible means they have at their disposal to attain what they want. The main thing is not the means, the main thing is the goal. Whatever means is not important, but how to reach the goal is important. If lives have to be sacrificed, if the ecology has to be destroyed, they have to achieve to what they want. And in the name of that, millions of people continue to die. So it is time that a meditative society arises, and the nature of that meditation and the nature of that consciousness that I want the rest of the humanity to live in cannot be said by words and can neither be conveyed in a single discourse.